So here's the actual blog post I want to talk about with The Last of Us 2. This is from medium.com. And if you don't know about medium.com, if you want to be a blogger or write for a living or do things online, posting articles, medium.com does pay you in some capacity. I don't know how much, but it is a good way to get started and get your opinion out there, to show off details, to show images, videos, whatever you want to do. Medium.com is a good start. Anyway, here's a really good blog post by Imran Khan. I don't know who he is. It's popped up on my feed. I said, hey, this guy has got some insight into this game. And his analysis is actually pretty detailed. He's speaking from experience. He's getting personal. He's saying why something works. And to be clear, he likes the game. He likes the work that went into it, the effort after 7 years of making a product like this of high quality. And it is a high quality game. No one's arguing it's not. It has a high production value. There's lots of talent. There's lots of people working on it, lots of voice actors. All sorts of artistry and craft is involved. The problem comes with the story, which is the point of one of these games. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to go through some key points where he talks about in his summarization of what this means, what this whole game means to him. So, The Last of Us 2, I found myself checking my phone a lot. When I died in a combat encounter, I would pause and then check Twitter. I wasn't compelled to go back and try it again. Things were getting fewer and farther between. I started losing more interest in playing the game. And this is an odd feeling. Like you don't want to go through it anymore. It's exhausting. It's not something I ever want to pick up again. I don't want to play a second time. It's painful to go through. And for the longest time, I was having trouble figuring out if this was intentional, if this overlong feeling, like someone pulling apart a Stretch Armstrong, was part of what I was supposed to feel. And if that were the case, if I am supposed to feel that, is an execution or intention necessarily a good thing? So did the creators want you to feel bad? Did they want you to go, oh, I got to play as Abby again. Oh, I got to go see another flashback. Oh, I'm killing all these people again. That's what they force you to go through that. And some creators will go like, well, that's the point. That's what's beautiful about it. They force you to go through this harrowing experience. You're like, okay, I see what they're doing there. It still doesn't make it a good thing. You don't go to entertainment to feel bad. You can feel tragedy. You can feel sadness and remorse. This is part of the narrative. But if it's not presented in a certain way that's likable to the audience, it's not going to connect. It's not going to work. So here he talks about, he understands this concept of what the creators were doing. I understand the boldness of the Ellie-Abby split. It's the same boldness that defines Metal Gear Solid 2. I wouldn't go that far. I see what they did there, but that's more of a thing where you get to play as Snake here and there. You don't get to play as him the entire experience, which people were expecting. So does a little spin. But these are two characters. Raiden is not an unlikable character. He's not as macho, I guess, as Snake, but you get along with Raiden. He's one of the heroes of the story. The same with Snake. He's still a hero of the story. You're both two heroes on the same team. Playing with expectations can be the strongest tool in the narrative designer's belt, regardless of medium, and video games let you invest that additional layer of controlling a character to leverage it. I do not think The Last of Us 2 does it well for exactly that reason. So he's like, hey, if you want to subvert our understanding of what comes from a genre, great. Maybe that's the best literary technique you've got. Maybe that's all Druckmann has. Maybe that's all the writing team has. Maybe that's all they could do. It didn't work out so well, unfortunately. When you're saying, hey, you get to play as the villain, you're like, wait a second, I don't like the villain. I'll never like the villain. And I'm aware of all these tricks you're playing on me. So as the game proceeds, you play with flashbacks, and then flashbacks within flashbacks. Then you're restarting your character as Abby. Those little things, the predictability, the pacing, the weird gameplay, all of those little annoyances and frustrations and disagreements became massively exasperated by the fact that I just started The Last of Us Part 2, and that feeling kind of kept up through the rest of the game. Because you're playing two through lines. One of a character you came here to play, who's on a quest for revenge, and another of a character that you don't want to play. because they want you to see it from their perspective. You're forcing you to see it from their perspective, and you just don't like them. There are things that are likable, things they do which you are attracted to, but as a whole, you dislike this character because they are the target of your revenge. It's confusing. Why should we feel two contradictory emotions from two different characters? So then he goes on to summarize this as the boss fight, the Rat King. On its own, a small flaw, a bad boss fight, a weird way to unground a world that prides itself on its grounding even amongst the fantastical idea of zombies. That it comes at a time where I really felt like the game should be wrapping up and not instead getting off the bench or even more, really made this feel worse than in a vacuum. So let's talk about the Rat King for a bit. There is nothing in the game that prepares you for this fight. You're literally dropped to the floor after a chase sequence. This is the whole point of getting certain medical supplies for Yara, I believe. And you have to go to the hospital, and you go to the basement of the hospital, and there's this giant boss there. The Rat King is important because it represents the problem I have with The Last of Us 2. Here is this big, bloated, multi-headed amalgamation of several different ideas and concepts that are smashed together without any care but how well they are put together. It's the nested flashbacks of Abby, just one after the other with no story progress, because the narrative wants you to focus solely on the character development and not the plot. Now, there is some character development of Abby, not in the way he thinks though. The only character development I saw was of Abby's facing of her fear of heights. The rest of it is very loosely connected from her desire to help a bunch of kids because they helped her. And she gives up everything to help these kids time and again just because they helped her, even though they're the enemy. Even though this would be a great opportunity to brokerage peace or other certain political maneuverings, but Abby's not that kind of character. She's not that smart. She doesn't have a political mindset. In fact, she doesn't even have a mindset. We don't know what's going on in her head, aside from a few dreams where her dreams are her motivation to go help kids, if you can make sense of that. It's the weird pacing, the lengthy encounters with 3 or more enemies, more than it should have, every "I guess we have to go around" line said out loud, the extended epilogue that just keeps going. The Last of Us 2 is a Rat King of imperfect ideas, and it drags the whole thing down for me. So this is a good analogy, using the boss of the Rat King to figure out what The Last of Us 2 is. This big amalgamation of bad ideas smashed together. When the game asked me to play as Abby and defeat Ellie, I died a few times and genuinely considered just stopping there and making that my ending. I don't know if you guys have seen on Twitter or any sort of GIF website where they show people dying to Ellie. It's like, yes, this is my ending. The game's over. This is what I want. This is what I want to happen. Because that's the point of Ellie's storyline, is to kill Abby. So when you're forced to play as Abby to kill Ellie, you're like, no, I don't want to do this. Just kill me. Done. Game over. I feel better. If you are trying to feel good when playing a game and it's the opposite of the plot of that game or the opposite of Abby's storyline, you have a problem with your game. You have a problem with your character. You have a problem with telling a story through the villain that you don't want to play as. You're not giving us any option as a gamer to do this or that. That's a problem with the story. I think The Last of Us 2 is an incredible work. So the guy's like, hey, this is an incredible experience. It's a horrible experience, but it's amazing. There's details that most players won't even notice. It's a long journey that took 7 years to make. It is no small feat in the world of video games. No one's contesting this fact. This is obvious. We've never said this wasn't true. It's impressive in so many ways. I think that's why it's important I acknowledge why it didn't work for me. It deserves better than to be considered a perfect video game that transcends debate. And that's such a great article showcasing that even with all these perfect 10-10 scores, he properly articulated what's wrong with the game. It's bloated, it's meaningless, it's painful. It doesn't add up to what a player wants. It makes you feel empty at the ending. And he didn't even address the end. This has nothing to do with the ending. This has nothing to do with Joel's death. It's just his general feeling. an idea, an assessment, and categorizing it through the Rat King boss encounter as the whole experience. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting read, a good take by Imran Khan. Thanks for listening. Have yourself a great day.